And welcome to MSET Community Link. This program is the first installment in a monthly program explaining local access television and what it is. My name is Diana Trettel, and today I have with me Station Manager Jerry Abraham. Jerry, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, hopefully this is the first of hopefully many programs on local access television that we'll be sending out to you to talk and explain a little bit about what local access television is.
And I think that's a really good place to start. What is local access?
Okay, I think the best way to explain local access is to first of all tell you what it isn't. And that's one of the problems with people when they look at local access. They look at it and they compare it to the various network channels. And really local access is not network TV, it's not public TV. It's really a beast in and of itself. So maybe we should explain a little bit about those different types of channels that are on our TVs every day. So if we can take a look at some of these slides here, let's talk about the different types of local access television. Okay. First of all, we have network types of channels. And networks are the things like NBC, CBS, Fox. Those are the big statewide, actually worldwide channels that are usually based out of New York. That's where we get our situation comedies, our programming in the evening, and those types of things. And then the network channels have what are called affiliates. And then the affiliates are like the WCCO, the KSTP, the regional channels that we pick up, like from out of Minneapolis, Alexandria, those types of channels.
And those are what you can get with your rabbit ears or your TV antenna?
Yeah, those are also what are known as broadcast channels, because they broadcast out. You know, you can pick them up in most cases with an antenna, but then you can also get them on cable. But you know, we have the regional ones, and if you watch like a WCCO, probably 80% of their programming comes from the network, CBS, but then they insert their local news and those types of things. And then the other types of programs then, besides network TV, we also have cable TV. Okay, cable is somewhat new to the TV audience. That cable came in about the 70s. And you have channels that are specifically for cable TV. You have HBO, Discovery, Lifetime. Those types of channels you can only get if you subscribe to a cable system in a city or a community.
Okay, and they also include the network channels in many cases, right?
Yes, they also include the networks. Usually on most cable systems, they will run the regional network channels as well.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have what a lot of people are familiar with, and that's public television, PBS. And then PBS is somewhat like the networks where they have affiliates too. They have KTCA, they have KAWE, some of the ones that we're familiar with in this area. But basically they operate the same way. Most of the programming comes from PBS, but then they also insert their regional programs as well.
So they're like a network channel on a smaller scale.
Similar to
not the big budgets and whatever.
And of course their funding is a little different too. You know, with network television, most of their revenue comes from advertisers. They put advertising on the channels. Public television, most of their money comes either from the federal government or from subscribers that pay in a monthly or yearly fee to PBS or to the affiliate to run the programming. So their funding sources are a little different, but they somewhat operate the same. Okay, and then of course now we start getting closer to what we do on our channel, but there is one kind of step in between. You have public television, and then there are some programs, you don't see a whole lot of these channels, but in some of the larger metropolitan areas, there are things called community access television. And they are kind of an in-between of network and local access. The difference is they probably do get most of their money from what's called a franchise fee, which we'll describe a little bit later. It's fees that comes from the city to pay for the costs of running the channel. But they also do advertising, and they do run their own news and that type of thing. But that's what's called community access television. And you may see those in some metro communities, but they're kind of few and far between. And then we finally get to what we do, and that's what's known as local access television. And what local access television is basically, it's local TV. It's a channel that's specifically for that community on that cable system. Okay? So those are the different types of television that we have on our regular TV lineup.
Okay, so local access channel then specifically for the community, what's the purpose of it?
Okay, the purpose of local access TV, and it can be spelled very quickly if you take a look at the next slide here. And basically local access is a conduit for providing information and programs to community members from community members.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit for those who don't
Good example. Let's say I'm living in Minneapolis and I've got this program. I just went to Las Vegas and I had a great time and I took a camcorder along with me. I took a whole lot of neat shots and everything, and I want to share that with the community. Well, I can't go to WCCO and say, here, would you air this for me? Because WCCO is not going to air that, because they have to rely on advertisers and all that. And probably my video from Las Vegas doesn't quite meet the advertiser standards.
Okay.
So, and the federal government realized that. They said, you know, we got to somehow figure out a way so that the average person in a community can share their views, opinions, whatever, with other community members. And that's why local access was formed. So it's a way of having community members share programming and information with other community members.
But our local access channel is a lot more than just somebody's trip to Vegas. There are a lot of public service sort of things that you use local access for, correct?
Yeah, and if we take a look at what we provide, you know, some of the things that we provide is we provide community access. Okay, so the different ways we provide community access is we have things, you know, and how do we get these things on the air? And some of the programs that we have are public types of programs. We also have educational types of programs, and we have governmental types of programs. As a matter of fact, if you go to larger cities, a lot of times they'll have 3 local access channels. Like in Minneapolis. And one channel will have specifically governmental programs. One will have educational. And then a third channel will have public. Sometimes you hear those referred to as PEG channels because that stands for Public, Education, and Government. Okay. Okay? Now, how are these programs produced? If we can take a look at the slides once again. It varies between local access channels. And I've had an opportunity in the 4 years that we've operated MSET Community Link here in the area to tour a lot of different local access, both in large communities and small. One of the things, and there's differences in how the programs come to get on local access, but one of the ways are staff-produced programs. In other words, you have people that are employed by the local access channel to actually go out and tape programs.
We have one here with our MSET Local Community Link, Ken Ballou.
Ken Ballou. He's a paid person that goes out and he tapes such things as city council, county commissioners, and other various programs that happen throughout the community. So he's an example of a paid person that goes out and tapes those types of programs.
Okay.
Then we also have community-produced programs. We have just community members that go out and tape things. Some of you might have saw the program last fall when we actually gave Hub Zablowski the first annual Hubby Award at the City Council meeting. That was recognizing Hub and the work that he did and actually being a producer of community programs and bringing them into local access. So, and anyone can do that. If you're out there and you're a community member of Little Falls and you want to come in and share some information with the community, go ahead, go out and take your video camera out and shoot whatever you want and bring it in.
Now, there must be some times when you have to think about what it is that you're airing. For instance, if I was to go out and tape my daughter's play, wouldn't there be some right issues with that?
Yes, in other words, we don't just air anything that's brought to us. We have some concerns that we have to meet. Number one, it can't be vulgar, there can't be profanity, there can, of course, be nudity, those types of things. And then also we have to be concerned about copyright. In other words, we can't break legal copyright laws. So if it's something that it's a play that has copyright laws regarding airing, we can't air that. Okay, so yeah, there are some rules that we have to follow, but in most cases, if somebody's just going out and shooting a softball game, something like that, there's no problem.
Local parade, any of those kinds of things? Okay.
Some other ways we get programs, if we look at the slide once again, we have what I call mass audience programming. That is programming that is sent to us from outside the community, but yet goes on local access because it's an example of a program that probably wouldn't make it to the networks. A couple examples that we air on MSET Community Link like that are, we have the Perils for Pedestrians program, which is a program that some individual just shoots on a monthly basis, but it's geared to the local access. He sends that out to hundreds of local access channels throughout the whole United States. So programs like that aren't actually produced in the area, but yet are geared towards local access channels.
Okay, what about satellite programming?
We do some satellite programming on MSET Community Link too. If some of you might have caught the program called Televentures, which is a live educational program that we air on Tuesdays and Fridays. It's not live every Tuesday and Friday, but it's a program that we get off a satellite, and then we air that onto our system. And in some cases, those programs are live, where viewers can actually call in questions. And then we also have, when we're not airing programs, we have the community bulletin board. And Diana, you're responsible for putting those types of programs on, or those slides on.
That's
so
correct.
Whenever you're not seeing programming and seeing those beautiful slides with all the graphics and everything, Diana's responsible for that. She gets the credit.
And you can just send those right in to me, and I'll be very happy to put those on. And there's no charge for nonprofit organizations.
Yep. So that basically gives you an idea of where we get the programming from.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the history of local access?
Sure. And once again, we talked a little bit about it before, and that is the reason why local access came into existence was because there wasn't really a way for an individual, just an average community member, to actually get access to the airwaves. So, so if we take a look at the slide once again, local access has existed since the 1970s, and that was basically because you had your first cable channels around that time. But it wasn't until the Cable Act of 1984 where federal law did regulate that cable companies had to provide at least one channel in each community for local access so that people could get programming out to the community.
Now, this is a question I've always wanted to ask, is there some way of knowing, if I was to go into a community like, say, Bemidji, and I wanted to look for their local access channel, is there a certain range of numbers that in this Cable Act, or just as a general rule, would I be looking, for instance, Little Falls is LFTV 6, would I be looking for the lower digit numbers? Are they just scattered anywhere amongst the numbers from 1 to 100?
There is no specific number for local access. It varies between communities, and even in our area we have LFTV 6, but then in Piers and Holdingford and Royalton, their local access channels are channel 3. Local access tends to be the lower channels, because basically, then the reason why that is, and you have to understand the actual video spectrum to actually
we're going to get technical now.
Technical, but because of the differences in the video spectrum, usually a local access channel is channel 13 or below. But there are local access channels, especially if you get into the metropolitan areas. I've seen the local access up in the 40s, 50s, so there is no real rhyme or reason as to where they put those. It's whatever works best for the cable company.
So just because we have 3 of ours that are channel 3 and 1 that's 6, doesn't mean that they're all either 3 or 6 or whatever. Okay.
Right. Well, one of the things you will find out, and I've noticed this too, that even if you go into a metropolitan area, local access tends to work the same way, where there's a program. If it's not a community program, usually when they're running a community bulletin board if there's not the actual program. And it varies too. I've seen some local access channels that only air programming in the afternoons, and they run the bulletin board all during the day. And there's some that run their local access similar to a network channel, where everything is timed out to 30 minutes or an hour. It varies between local access channels.
Okay.
So they don't all look the same, but they are somewhat similar.
Okay.
So it was the Cable Act of 1984 that actually it was required by law for cable companies to provide the channel. Now, in Little Falls, programming actually began in 1985, and actually I had a little bit of part in that. Before, actually, there was some local access programming on Channel 6 before '85, but the way you had to get a program onto Channel 6 is you had to turn your videotape into the cable company. They had to take it out to the shack next to the tower and actually plug it in a VCR. So you couldn't program in advance. They had to send somebody out, and if the program was on at 6 o'clock on Sundays, that guy had to go out to the shack at 6 o'clock on Sundays, plug in the tape, and then play it. But it was in 1985 where we purchased the equipment to actually run the programming here from Little Falls, and we actually bought the equipment that allowed us to hook multiple VCRs up and program them in advance so that we could have somewhat of a regular programming schedule.
It might be a good time to mention that where we are located in the high school on the 2nd floor at Little Falls Community High School.
Yeah. And one of the main reasons why that happened was because Little Falls High School happened to have a studio. And to do local access programming, you have to have some place to do the programming from. So Little Falls had the studio, and we got the link to hook us in, and that's how it all got started. Just to give you a very quick history of the people, Tim Seelhoff was the first station manager of Channel 6 in 1985. He ran it for 2 or 3 years. Some of you may remember Mark Stone. I think he lives out in Cleveland now, but he ran the station for, it was probably another 3-4 years. Jeff Zabolowski was the station manager just before we took over, and he ran it for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then MSET, our organization, has been running it now for the last 4 years. As a matter of fact, starting January 1, we'll be starting our 5th year of operation of MSET Community Link. So that's kind of the history.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long to me.
No, it's gone by fast.
And it's changed a lot. It really has.
So.
Okay, well, what kind of programs then do Little Falls or MSET Community Link run at this time?
Okay, we have a wide range of programming. Probably the stuff that people are most interested in, and we get most of our calls from, especially when the equipment doesn't work and it doesn't come on, but our governmental programs. And it's surprising how many people watch Little Falls City Council, Morrison County Commissioners, Little Falls School Board. Like I said, I get a lot of calls, especially, you know, if it's something, of course, controversial. I'm always getting calls, when are you going to air the next city council meeting or things like that. So we have a lot of people that actually watch a lot of the governmental programs. And then some of the things, just to show you once again, that includes city council, school board, county commissioners. The educational programs that we run, and we run things like, you might catch Extension in You, that's one of our programs. We do sporting events, we do a lot of live basketball games, those types of things, as well as concerts. And then community education, we run some programs on everything from fish to planting perennial gardens, those types of programs. We also have community types of programs, and those are things like our church services. I think we air the services of, I think, 6 different churches now. And then some of the community events, the Arts and Crafts Fair, some of the other events that happen in the community. And then we also have entertainment types of programs, and we have things like the Internuts. We get a lot of comments on that. That's our program that Ron Creasha and Jim Norwood do on the internet. And then we do things like we tape the house concerts, some of the band concerts, those types of things that are entertaining to the community.
Now, could you give us some examples of the programming that you just mentioned? Which would be staff-produced, which would be community-produced? I'm assuming that the church programs are community-produced. Someone just took the initiative to say, hey, why don't we get our church service on local access?
And that's, you know, that's one of the things that I do want to emphasize in this program, too, is that anyone can produce a program for Channel 6. Anyone. If you want, you can come up to the studio and we'll set things up so that the cameras are there. We usually like to also line up staff to assist you, so that, you know, it would be helpful if you could line up a couple people that would volunteer to run the cameras and things like that. But we'll train you, we'll give you training on how to operate that equipment. But anyone in the community can come up and produce a program on any topic. Once again, just so long as it's not profanity, it's not nudity, you know, we don't allow those types of things, but anything else, if you want to come in and do a program, that's perfectly allowable.
Great.
And so, you know, I'm hoping we get some people interested, you know, like Jim and Ron, when they come in and do their monthly Internuts program. You can do it on, if you have a specific hobby, whether it be gardening or fishing or whatever. As a matter of fact, Jeff Zabolowski, I'm going to be working with him starting in January. We're going to start doing a monthly show in cooperation with the Fishing Museum. So, you know, we're looking at, one of the goals of MSET is to increase the number of community-produced programs.
And then you also receive programming from the Little Falls Video Club, correct?
Yes, they help us out a lot. That's one of the advantages of having MSET Community Link housed out of the high school, is that we, like tonight, we're using students that are actually running switching between the cameras and running the cameras. So we use students quite a bit, even for things like the Heartland Symphony, and for those types of programs, I usually use students.
Great. It's nice to get the kids involved. Maybe someday they'll be producing their own programs for us.
That's what we hope. And we have had a couple of students that have. Those of you might have seen the Kyle Hansen variety show. And Kyle, I think he's starting his second version now. So, but you know, we do have some students that are starting to produce their own shows too. So, and I hope some more students do get involved in that.
Great. Okay, maybe we need to talk a little bit about how we are funded, since we aren't a big network and we don't do commercials or anything like that, where does the funding come?
Yeah, that's an important thing to emphasize too, is sometimes, you know, and once again, we love to hear from you if you have questions or concerns about Channel 6, and you want to give us some suggestions as to how we can do a better job. We love to hear from you, but we also ask that you keep in mind that we are a local access channel, and we are funded differently than the networks and public TV. If you take a look as an example at WCCO, they probably have a multi-million-dollar budget. And one of their cameras is probably more than my budget for 2 or 3 years. So I mean, you have to somewhat keep that into perspective when you're comparing apples to oranges and those types of things. Is that network are funded differently than local access. And to give you an example, if we take a look at our funding, everything that we do on Channel 6 is funded on what's called a franchise fee. And those of you who have cable TV probably know what that is because you see it on your bill every month. There's something that says franchise fee, and then there's a certain percentage. It used to be 3%, now it's 5%. And 5% of your bill then goes into what's called the franchise fee that goes towards the operation of Channel 6. And if we go to the slide, if we take a look at that, right before the new franchise fee, we were collecting about $40,000. So all of our operation of Channel 6 was done on $40,000. With the new franchise now, that will go up to $60,000, but it's nothing compared to the networks and public television. And
the multi-million dollars.
Yes, and actually, when you look at it, I've toured a couple of metro local access channels, and even their operating budgets are in the millions of dollars because it's based on subscribers. The more subscribers you have, the more franchise fee money you collect, the more money you get towards local access. In the metro, you may have 27,000 subscribers on a cable system. Well, if everyone pays their 3% or 5%, that's millions of dollars. We only have 2,800 in Little Falls. So that's why we get about the $40,000 to $60,000.
So it would be fair to say that you really can't even compare local access channel to local access channel like you can NBC to ABC because of the huge differences possible in budgeting.
Right. Except I think Little Falls can be very proud. Number one, not every city in the United States puts the franchise fee towards local access, even though that's the intent. There's a lot of communities that take that franchise fee and put it into the general fund and use it for other things. I think that's where City Council really needs to be commended, where they've always put the dollars into local access, and that's one of the main reasons why MSET Community Link can do what it does. And I think we are very, we can compare ourselves very nicely, even to the metro channels when you look at some of the things we do, because we've had that City Council support. But let's take a look, for that $40,000, what do we have to cut?
Sure.
And people have to understand that too, when we look at it. For that $40,000, it covers a portion of my time. I'm not full-time Channel 6, but a portion of my time gets paid out of that $40,000. A portion of your time, doing the character generator and filling in when I'm not around and assisting and doing programs like this. We also have our videographers, Ken Ballou, as we mentioned before, who goes out and tapes, and as a matter of fact, sometime this winter, the MSET Community Link is going to be looking at hiring a second part-time person to go out and do taping. We also have the student programmers that we mentioned before. We also have to pay for all our equipment out of that franchise fee. And then we also have to buy all our supplies and, of course, travel, conferences. So you see, there's a lot of things that have to come out of that $40,000. So it's not just people's time, but it's also the equipment and things like that. Now, we did get $25,000 this year with the new franchise agreement to buy some equipment, and that has helped us to move into the digital realm, and we're slowly implementing that equipment now. But other than that, we have to exist on the franchise fee.
Okay. If community members have questions for you about local access, we've tried to cover just about everything today, but if they have some questions or say they want to purchase a tape, how would they get a hold of you?
Okay, and I'll answer both of those questions. First of all, and once again, I'm very honest in saying we strongly encourage people to give us a call. If they have questions on our programming, why we do things a certain way, whatever. If you have a question that you have for us, please give us a call. And the way you can get a hold of us is you can call us at area code 320-632-2017. And if we're not in the office, we do have voicemail, so you can leave us a message and we will return your call. But we are interested in finding out what you think of Channel 6 and Channel 3 and the other communities. And give us some ideas of maybe some programs that you would like to see aired on the various local access channels.
Or perhaps maybe they have a tape that they would like to bring in and don't know how they could get, they just tape something, they want to know how to get it on local access, give us a call.
Yep. And then if you can also email us, those folks that have computers, you can email us at communitylink@mset.k12.mn.us, and we'll get your email and we can respond to you via email. And then also, if you have a fax machine, and you can also fax us, let's say if you've got something that you want to get on the bulletin board, and as Diana mentioned, if you're, those are public service announcements, so if you're a nonprofit organization, you want to advertise something that you have upcoming in the area, you can fax us or drop it off to us, and we will get that on the bulletin, on the character generator, and advertise your event.
And we try to get those in about 2 weeks before the actual event because we like to air them for about a week prior to the event, and it's not worked on every day. So you want to try to get that in 2 weeks ahead of time. One thing I forgot to ask you, Jerry, was do you have set programming? Is it just willy-nilly turn on the TV and see what we're going to get? Or is there a set time for city council, a set time for church services? I would assume they're always on Sundays.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's probably the hardest part of my job is putting the schedule together on a weekly basis. We have some programs that are aired at the same time every day. And if those of you who watch a lot of Channel 6 know that City Council is always on Tuesdays, and it airs at 10:30 and 8. School Board is always on at 10 and 8 on Wednesdays, and on Thursdays is the County Commissioners at 10 and 8 p.m. So we do have some programs that are aired every day of the week at the same time. We have other programs, like the concerts, the student programs, those types of things, that we fit into the schedule where we can. So there's some parts of our programming that change on a daily basis, but there's others that are regular weekly programs that air at the same time. And that's one of the things I get a few comments from quite a few people, do you have a printed schedule? And we are in the process of working on that, and we hope that probably sometime in January we will have a printed schedule available that we can either mail out to you or we'll have at various locations within the community so that you can pick those up.
Well, that sounds great. Well, hopefully people are better aware, more informed of what local access is and what we do here. What about next month? You indicated that this could be a monthly show, so
Yes.
what will we talk about next month?
What I think we're going to do next month is we'll actually give you a little bit of a tour, a video tour of the facilities up here, to give you some idea of the type of equipment that we use to get the programs out to you. The cameras, the switchers, all the various equipment that we use to get programming onto Channel 6. So kind of a little tour of the facilities that we have up here.
Okay, well great.
And I guess the last thing I wanted to just mention before we end the program is that we do plan on having this be a regular monthly program. So if you would like to have some questions covered on MSET Community Link program, either call it in, fax it in, or come and visit us and let us know, and we'll answer those questions on this program in future programs.
Great.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll see you next month then.
Yes, thank you for watching, and please keep watching MSET Community Link.